Good afternoon. Welcome to today's live stream. Daryl, Amy, and Larry Levine here. We've got a great topic today, Larry.
Yes, we do. And you know what? We got to dive right into this, Daryl. This is going to be educational. It's going to be fun, and it's going to set you up for some great sales results in 2022.
Well, that's exactly right. And so whether you're in sales enablement, whether you lead a sales team and that's part of your role, or if you're in sales and you're a sales professional, the ideas that we share today on 3 ways sales enablement can power 3x results in 2022 are going to be really practical. And I don't know about you, Larry, but my goals for 2022 are a little bit bigger than my goals for 2021. Probably most people listening in, the quota for 2022 is not less than 21. It's probably more. And this brings us all to a point that we're here today talking about, which is how can we empower 3x results? And I think the first question is it, I mean, really, guys, is it possible to drive 3x results? Well, we believe it is. And that's where we want to start today, is just by asking this question: how could you power 3x results? How could you do that? And so we just want to run through a quick sample scenario here just to show how this is possible and should be part of our mindset. By the way, if you're joining live, we're welcome. We're glad you're here. Feel free to chime in. And if you're watching later, that's awesome as well. We'd love to hear from you. But if you think about the drivers, Larry, of results in sales, and we'll just look at the net new side for now. We could run this whole scenario on cross-sell, but you've got prospecting, right? So one way you could drive results is you could focus in on prospecting in 2022 and go, 2022 is the year of prospecting, and get more meetings, right?
Well, hey, shouldn't it be that prospecting should be the year every year, right, Daryl?
It always is, but how can we prospect more effectively?
Absolutely.
Is the question, right? So in our scenario, let's say that this team was getting 1,200 meetings. They show a 33% improvement. Now they're getting 1,596 meetings. Well, the next thing we could look at is how well are we doing at creating opportunities? Getting meetings to pipeline is the metric, right? Let's say that 30% were going to pipeline, but let's say the sales team was also able to improve their meetings to pipeline, their value conversations, their first ins. Let's say they were able to improve that by 33%. And now your meetings to pipeline would go up, right, Larry?
Yeah, and this is the net new. This is and it goes back to, I'm a big believer, and then we'll move on, is if you want to have a full sales funnel, you got to build a full relationship funnel. And what we're going to speak about is going to tie right into this and help you grow your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think about meetings to pipeline, the next thing you think is what if your sales team was able to have better value conversations? What if they were able to communicate value, uncover value, drive value, and increase, say, the average deal value by 33%? And also simultaneously, what if they were able to improve their close rate by 33%? Now, if you combine all of these together, if you did one of these 4 things, if you focused on prospecting, you'd get a 33% bump. If you focused on meetings to pipeline, on opportunities, you get a 33% bump. If you focused on closing skills, 33% bump. And if you focused on value conversation, 33% bump. But look what happens if you get all of these right at the same time. You literally, it's just math here. You can take this and you can 3x results. Here's what's cool. All of these have one thing in common, and this is where I get excited. More trust drives every single one of them. So when it comes to sales enablement, and this is what we want to talk about today, we look at this problem and we go, should we, do we need to know how to prospect? Yes, but if we could add more trust to our relationships, we could prospect more effectively. If we could add more trust to our first in meetings, we could create more pipeline. If we could add more trust to our conversations, we could create more value. And if we could add more trust, we could close more deals. And this isn't just little incremental growth, Larry. We're talking literally about the opportunity to drive real results.
Not only is this real results, this is monumental sales growth. And I really love this because this was the whole vision that came out of the trust challenge that we did this past fall, Daryl.
It absolutely is. And it's going to drive our conversation today. And what we're thinking is three ways that sales enablement can power 3x results in 2022. We're going to look at two critical components of sales enablement that tend to get overlooked, and they're massively powerful. Two multipliers that can take your results and multiply them. And I don't know about you, Larry, I like multiplication over addition any day.
And this is simple math. This is when we break this out, this is simple math here. This isn't rocket science PhD level stuff. This is simple math that you can implement to drive incremental sales growth.
Yeah, and then we're going to look at one new starting point, and this one's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to keep things moving. This is going to be about a 25-minute meeting, so buckle up, and let's get ready to dive into this conversation, which is extremely powerful. But if you look at where we are right now, when it comes to sales enablement, usually sales enablement, when I'm thinking more about the development side of sales enablement, not the technology side, that's a separate conversation. But the sales rep development side of sales enablement, usually we think about two things. How do we make sure they have product knowledge? And how do we make sure they have sales skills? And by the way, both of those two things are really important.
Absolutely.
Here's the problem, though, in Larry, I've seen in many industries, especially industries that are highly technical or highly regulated, you have to spend a lot of time on product knowledge. You may spend a little bit time on sales skills, but there's a massive gap in between the two. And I believe that looking at next year and going, if I want to dramatically increase my results, there's three ways to solve the problem. I could say, hey, let's do more product knowledge. Let's make sure our reps know what they're talking about. Important. Yeah. Let's do more sales skills. Now, which kind of laugh, right? Because Larry, I remember the conversations you and I have had many times where I know you spent 27 years in the field as a sales professional, which, by the way, I love it because the stuff that you bring to the table is fresh. As a field sales professional, and what happened every January? It's time to develop the sales team. What happens?
It was product knowledge training, sales skills training. It was those two things, and it was all crunched together.
It was prospecting. It's like if we get more, because we want more activity. I get that. But look, here's the deal. If you want better results in 2022, maybe there's a better way to solve this problem. And I would argue, especially if you've got tenured salespeople, like poor Larry Levine, I just picture you 25 years of experience going to prospecting 101. Like seriously, right? You could recite all that in your sleep. What's the missing link? What's missing? I think the missing link that ties these two together, and we believe this to our core, is two things. Number one is people skills, and the other two is an authentic sales culture. People skills, Larry.
Absolutely. And I still vividly remember this conversation this past, actually is not too long ago, where we were actually discussing this with somebody in sales enablement. They said, you know what? We do a really great job at product knowledge. We do an amazing job at training on the sales skill side of things. But what we could be doing a whole lot better is the relationship building skills, thus the people skills. And what's really interesting, you and I were just in a conversation about this last week. So I think a lot of times we assume that a lot of people in sales already have this skill set to build relationships because we're always talking about it. We're going to challenge a lot of people on this.
Well, we're going to unpack what we believe the core people skills are, but here's the deal. If you look at this, I'm a firm believer that soft skills yield hard dollars. And so you look back at where we were before, looking at 3x results. What do all of these have in common? If I can build more trust, which is the end result of people skills, right? Trust and credibility. I can improve all four of these areas simultaneously. And like we're showing here, if you can make modest improvement in each one of these areas through applying people skills to build trust, you can really drive results. So soft skills do yield hard dollars. And this is why when we look at the sales enablement challenges right now, we firmly believe that people skills is the missing link in all of it. It's the ability to develop trust. And it also happens inside something that'll be the topic of our next live stream, which is authentic sales culture. But let's take a look at these people skills. Larry, we ran this past fall the trust building challenge. And as we were doing that, we did it out of instinct and research, because look, what's the number one challenge that salespeople have right now? It's not new. It's just worse than ever.
It's the lack of trust. Well, it's two things. It's a lack of trust and it's a lack of credibility. But I think that's just focus on the lack of trust here for a moment.
Well, so we began asking the question, how do you build trust? Because trust building is a skill. Trust building can be enabled. If it's a skill, it can be enabled. Well, what are the components of trust? So we came up with a trust equation. And so the first two things are what we want to talk about from an enablement perspective today. And that is, these are people skills, how can you develop your team to be able to build authentic relationships, to build them and sustain them? And how can you develop your team to articulate meaningful value? If you're able to do that, those two things right there are a game changer.
Yeah, and this is, I love the equations, Daryl. It's simple math on this, but the authentic relationship part of this, it's not that difficult, and we're going to encourage, and as we unpack this, we're going to encourage this. It's sitting right in front of us. Those authentic relationships are sitting right in front of us, Daryl.
We say it's not that difficult, but in execution, though, is the difference between what is happening right now and what could or should be happening is very different. And one of the ways we see this is all the time in terms of B2B sales teams. And you and I live in the B2B space. B2B sales teams, we all know, or buying teams, we all know that we're not selling to an individual anymore. And how many times, Larry, have you had that conversation with a sales rep? It just makes me chuckle now when they go, I own that account. You know, okay, who do you know in that account?
And it's never more than 3 people, but they own the account. Seriously, folks.
Well, here's the reality. And we all know, tip of the hat to Brent Adamson and Matt Dixon for the research that was done now about 12 years ago in the Challenger customer. They found that on average, there was 5.4 people in the buying team. And I tell you what's happened, and the research has proved this, and you can read the current research on this same topic, is there's not 5.4 people. There's now many times we're into double digits on buying teams. And so the beautiful thing here is we have the opportunity and the reason to develop authentic relationships with multiple people inside accounts and inside target accounts. The challenge is because most sales people have not been coached on how to develop and sustain relationships, what you like to call speed to heart, we're really light. And in today's environment, during the Great Resignation, where people are swapping jobs like crazy, if you're not relationally deep in your current and target accounts, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and oftentimes, you know, we use the word relationship vulnerability with this. And let's just unpack this just for a moment. Let's just think about this. If there's double digits sitting in the buying team, right? Yep. Insert titles. Those are 10 relationships that you must develop, you must nurture, you must grow, because each one of those are going to yield different outcomes. And when we only hone in on those few relationships, we all know this in sales, we've been around the block a time or two, is we always hone in on where the money is and where the signature's at. Important, but think about all the other exposure that's out there when it comes to building relationships. And I have the saying, funny as it may be, is the more you know, the more you grow. The more people you get to know, the more you're going to grow inside that account.
Yeah, so there's actual enablement here. There's actual skills that can be developed. And if you look at from a sales enablement chair, whether once again you're in sales enablement or you are a sales leader and that's part of your role, or you're a sales rep yourself and go, what am I going to do to be better? There's skills and tools. There's connection. How good are we at connection? And I'm not talking about, would you be my friend, you know, on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
I'm talking about actually making a connection with somebody.
We're talking about true connection, right? True connection that leads to the next one, which is conversation, Daryl.
Yeah, conversation skills and collaboration as well. So, I mean, all of this is really, really important. Really, really important. So, I want to highlight this in terms of being able to show collaboration, and the tools around that are related to things like a relationship map. We call them at Selling from the Heart PBR profiles, and it's not what you think. They're profiles around really understanding a buyer's personal business and
And
recreational
recreation.
areas so we can build that relationship. These are things that can be taught and things that can be enabled. But that brings up the next point of the trust equation. And I look at this like two sides of a coin, right? You got to have authentic relationship. You also have to be able to develop meaningful value. And here's the issue here. If you have authentic relationships, but you can't communicate meaningful value, you're going to have a bunch of friends and you're going to need them to buy you lunch because you're going to be broke, right? But the flip side is if you can communicate value and you have not developed authentic relationships,
You're gonna have
then
a weak pipe.
you're going to be the smartest guy in the
Yeah.
room, but you're going to be broke. So enablement, where does it fit? Now we go, and I like to say buyers don't buy products and services. They buy the outcomes the products and services deliver. Direct quote from Revenue Growth Engine, one of my favorite books, Larry. But if you look at that,
Hey, that was a
statement,
hey, Daryl, that was a shameless plug, but I love it.
thank you. But if you look at that statement of, looking at what people actually buy, they don't buy the products and services. They buy the outcomes those products and services deliver. The question is, those people on the buying team all have different desired outcomes. And so what we've got to be able to do is we've got to be able to uncover and learn quickly what those outcomes are. And there are, once again, skills and tools, right? Skills, questioning, business conversation skills, business acumen skills. And there are tools as well that can be provided to sales reps to enable them to communicate meaningful value.
And I just want to stop and pause on this just for a quick second, Daryl, because I remember back to a podcast guest about a year or so ago that was on the Selling from the Heart podcast, and he challenged salespeople out there, and he said his big concern is salespeople are conversationally incompetent when it comes to driving some of this, because we've been so focused on having these product centric conversations that in order to unpack this value, it can't be around the product. It has to be what's important to them at that moment in time.
That's right. And so here's the challenge and the opportunity right now. If you just go on outcomes that your marketing department sends you, you're going to end up with like corporate adjective soup, right? We're going to help you be more efficient and sustainable and optimize the blah, 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 the blah. And it's right. The reality is, if you think about what we've been through over the last couple of years, buyers before the pandemic had a certain set of outcomes they wanted. Once the pandemic happened, the situation changed. Still selling the same products, but the outcomes were different. Now that we're moving into whatever next phase, and I think we're in a pretty dynamic environment here, it's really important that our reps have their ears to the ground and we've given them the skills to be able to actually discover the outcomes that buyers want. Otherwise, and the teams that enable this are going to do really well. The teams that don't enable this, I think, are going to really find challenges as we move into today and tomorrow's problems with yesterday's message. And so this is a really, really critical thing. When we take a look at this, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to equip our reps to develop authentic relationships and be able to communicate value that's meaningful. And these are things that need to be enabled in order for us to be successful going forward. But the good news, Larry, is not only are these things, once these things are in place, there are a couple multipliers we can put into place. And I like multiplication because that's where things get exciting.
I was really never good at math, but I am going to tell you this. Again, it's simple stuff, but these are the things. the multipliers to this is the rocket fuel. This is going to be the accelerator for sales growth in 2022. This is what's going to bring the authentic relationships and meaningful value right up to the forefront. And that next one, Daryl, this has introduced it all. It's the inspirational experiences.
This is a multiplier. Now, if you think about it, what is inspirational experience? Well, the reality is most smart companies now have thought a lot about the experience the company provides to the customer. But what we've learned is salespeople, sales professionals control a lot of the experience that happens during the buying process. And sales reps that focus on making the experience throughout the entire buying journey and throughout the entire journey of being a customer, make that experience inspirational, meaningful, motivational, insert adjective here. The ones that really focus on creating a great experience, and that's trainable, coachable, all of that are the ones that win. And we know this because we've all been to Disneyland, right? Or Disney World, whatever coast you're on.
Depending, but let's just stop and think about this. Is Disneyland's done a wonderful job on creating inspirational experiences. I want everyone in sales enablement and in sales to think about this for a moment. Is they've done a great job, Daryl, at capturing memories and capturing experiences.
They have. So like, here's low-hanging fruit. What is the experience that your sales team is creating for your buyers? Is it the same as everyone else? Or is it something that's meaningful and inspirational? And this is where things can get fun. And as we coach and enable reps on how to build a client experience that's meaningful, memorable, inspirational, these are multipliers, because now you create incredible competitive advantage. And it's really just, it's like pretty much free. You know, it's just a matter of being intentional and turning it into something that is repeatable. And that brings us up to our next multiplier, Larry, which
I love this. I love
disciplined habits. Now, here's the deal. We all have disciplined habits, I hope, when it comes to prospecting. You know, some of the core sales skills. If hopefully we have disciplined habits on prospecting. But do we have disciplined habits when it comes to building and nurturing authentic relationships, establishing and communicating meaningful value, and creating inspirational experience? And if not, that's something that can be enabled.
Yeah, and there's one word I just have to layer inside of this, and we can almost have. It can't be three, but I'm just going to layer it in. Discipline habits is the consistency around this. And I just put a video message out just yesterday as we're recording this, Daryl. It's about consistency and discipline. These are the two things. If you can layer consistency and discipline inside what Daryl and I are sharing with you, watch what starts to happen with sales results.
That's right. So you look at all these drivers: authentic relationship. We need habits around developing relationships. Meaningful value, consistent disciplined habits on building value, consistent disciplined habits on creating experiences. We start to integrate those habits. And the good news is most of those are micro moments that can be integrated into anyone's day with just a little bit of intention. And now we're getting the multipliers on the sales team. And that is super, super exciting. So,
and I like, just really quick, and sorry to cut you off on there, but you said a word that I think is just really important that we layer inside of this, is we have to bring intentionality to this.
That's right.
So I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the spirit of looking at all of this, we've said so far there are two critical things that need to be there. You need people skills and a sales culture. We've talked about the multipliers on trust, multipliers being inspirational experience and disciplined habits, building on top of authentic relationship and meaningful value. All of that can be enabled. Question is, are we enabling it? I mean, it's our job in sales enablement to enable these skills. What component of your sales enablement plan includes all of this? Now, I want to share one last thing, which is kind of interesting as we round this out. And that is, where do you start? Where do you start when it comes to enabling trust building skills, enabling your reps to get trust built and speed to heart? There's a different starting point. And I want to show everyone here this model. This is how we think about applying trust building skills to every phase of the sales process. If you look at the circle, you'll see authentic prospecting, you'll see authentic selling, that's managing the pipeline, and authentic client management, the three phases of the sales process. And Larry, when it comes to sales enablement, where do most people start?
I would say where do most people start as it relates to these three is we always focus in on prospecting. Here's our challenge, and here's where we encourage everyone out there to key in on is I'm a big believer, as is Daryl. We believe the key to monumental sales growth, exponential sales growth is going to occur right through your current clients. That's why we encourage everyone to start with
Authentic
authentic
client
client
management.
management.
Yeah, and it's interesting as we are enabling sales teams, we're looking at this problem and saying, okay, well, everyone wants more net new business. And by the way, everyone also wants cross-sell business. When we get inside our current clients and we begin to develop those relationships, we create the foundation on which we can network into our dream accounts. We learn the meaningful value that's going to resonate with those dream accounts. We get referrals into those dream accounts. And simultaneously, as we're working in our current clients, there's all kinds of low-hanging fruit that can be grabbed with cross-sell. And so the beautiful thing is, as we begin to develop these relationships in our current accounts, we can quickly turn to actually being able to prospect, and with that basis of trust, then leverage that for higher close rates and more pipeline velocity. So when it comes to your sales enablement, we want to make a suggestion. And the suggestion is, why are we starting with prospecting again this year? What if we started with client management?
Yeah, and inside client management, we could still prospect. Oftentimes, you're going to hear us refer to it in selling from the heart as relationally prospecting. It's relationally prospecting through your client base, through their networks, because we're a big believer, Daryl, that you're 1 degree of separation from your best sales opportunity. It's right
Absolutely.
through your clients' networks,
It is. Your network, Larry, is
your net worth.
your net worth. That's right. But that's absolutely true. The question is, for us in sales enablement, are we enabling that? And what could happen if we did? Well, we believe that what could happen if you did enable people building skills inside an authentic sales culture. And once again, our next live stream is going to be on building an authentic sales culture. But if you can enable that, you can increase your prospecting effectiveness, increase your first call to appointment or to opportunity, increase your close rate, increase your deal value. All of these things go around trust and these core trust building skills we've been talking about today. And so as you're thinking about sales enablement for next year, authentic relationships, what are you doing to enable authentic relationships? Meaningful value. How are you equipping your reps to be able to uncover and talk about value that's meaningful to everybody in the buying team? And then how are you driving inspirational experience and all of it inside disciplined habits? Larry, when we get these things right, good things, great things start to happen.
It's been I so agree, Daryl, and it's just been a blessing to see the growth of selling from the heart. And as we wrap this up, Daryl, it's selling from the heart. It's about bringing sincerity and deep business substance to the forefront, but it's layering in exactly what we're talking about today is leveraging selling from the heart to help you build trust by authentic relationships and meaningful value.
Absolutely. So if this sounds interesting, a great next step might be to see how this resonates with your sales team. And so for everybody watching here live today or watching later on in the video, we want to make a special invitation. And that is, we're inviting you to invite Larry to your next sales meeting.
Hey, that's
And
a good looking picture, Daryl.
you look pretty sporty there with
Not
that
bad, huh?
coat slung over your shoulder. Uh, hey, you know what though? I want to invite everybody listening in. If this is resonating with you, invite Larry to your next sales meeting, and he'll share the trust formula, what you've seen today, with some practical action items your salespeople can take and put to work right away to build trust and grow. Because here's the deal, Larry. I think in all of this, right now, as we're heading into 2022 and we're planning for this year, I'll circle back to the beginning. Quotas are bigger. Expectations are higher, of course, right? What are you going to do to drive results? What are you going to do to shine? What are you going to do to enable your sales team so that this becomes the most successful sales year ever? And, all of it, we haven't talked about price increases, authentic relationships, meaningful value. If you're in like every industry that's bumping prices, I want your sales growth to come from more than price increases. I want it to come from, and I want you to navigate that successfully. So these people skills and trust building, Larry, are so critical. So I hope everybody listening in takes advantage of having you at their sales meeting, Larry. And I know I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I'm excited about next year.
I'm massively excited because it's sitting right in front of us. Your current clients are a wealth of help. We just have to be willing to dig in and ask for help.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us today. And if you do us a favor, if this resonated with you, would you share it? Like, comment, reshare it. We want to get this message out because I think this is an important time for us to be able to rethink how we're enabling our sales reps. And I believe that when we do, we're going to see some sales teams make 2022 the most successful year yet. So happy holidays to everybody. And here's to a great and prosperous 2022.
Take care.